I have a fairly complex, stressful job, I would say, as an air traffic controller. And I think trading is much more complex and stressful if you do it the wrong way.
What if the very things you believe about trading are actually setting you up to be a loser? We have our good friend Bobby Campos with us. He's going to expose three of the deadliest traps new traders fall into and how to avoid them. So
Mm.
before we break down which one of these traps, Bobby, I want to let you give an opportunity. You're a trader who
Yes.
balances being a husband, a dad of a newborn, 5 months old,
Yep.
an air traffic controller. That's one of the things you and I share in common. I was an air traffic controller in the Navy when I first joined, but you still find time to be a can slim trader. I don't know if you call yourself a can slim trader,
I would definitely.
which requires structure, consistency. And you didn't start that way. Why don't you share a little bit about your story, how you got started in the world of trading, also all the other stuff too?
Yeah, absolutely. I had one of the more unorthodox introductions into trading. I had no plans of actually trading. I grew up and my initial thoughts of the market was it was rigged and it was just if you weren't a real true, hedge fund owner or something like that, you're basically just gambling. So
Mm,
my idea was just stay as far away as possible. Prior to being in air traffic control, though, I worked in a sales type corporate job. Anytime I sat down with big clients, CEOs, they all want to talk the market. I just kept finding myself with nothing to say because I had no understanding of the market. Little did I know most of these people had no understanding of the market either. I wanted to learn. One of my buddies I worked out with said, there's a guy over there on a treadmill reading the paper, which I didn't realize at the time was the IBD paper. He trades stocks, X him. He could probably help you out. So I asked him and I said, hey, I want to learn some stocks, be able to talk with my clients. He actually gave me How to Make Money in Stocks, the Matthew Galgani book, the blue book, that
mm,
small one,
yeah,
which
yeah.
goes to show you how much faith he had in my reading ability. He gave me the smallest book this
Mhm.
and I read that and instantly just said, wow, this makes sense. This is
Right on.
there's something that I could actually execute on. And I went from I want to just be able to talk about the market with my clients to I want to figure out how am I going to trade? How can I do this? So me and that guy he said, all right, if you really are interested in trading, we will basically sit down every week. I'll give you some books to read those books, and we'll talk about the market. And that's kind of what got me into trading. So I didn't really have a lot of other strategies and stuff before, but still had that misconceptions of the market before I even started trading. And luckily found cancel pretty early on.
And so, if I understand what you're saying, you had a mentor that guided you and kept you grounded where you didn't have to waste a lot of time figuring it out on your own. You basically had a pretty good flight path to touchdown, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, it helped you stay away from some of the traps that you probably see a lot of other traders fall into. So,
100%. I kind of got a little fast track condone a lot of those people who have found their way to a strategy because most people don't even think about strategy. They just get into the market and they just start trading. And
yeah,
that path to just going from I'm just going to open an account and just start buying based on myths of the market is very easy. And then to get from that point to saying, okay, all these people who are very successful traders, they have a strategy that they follow. Getting
yeah.
to the point of even just embracing that fact and trying to find a strategy is a long path. So for the people that go through that and are committed through the whole point, my hat's off to them because that's not easy. I got the easy route.
I wish that I had found somebody like that earlier on because I was that guy that tried to figure out stuff on his own. And yeah, it's not pretty. And then there's a lot of stuff that you need to unlearn to start to do things well.
Yeah. One of the things, Bobby, that I find intriguing and inspiring about your story is that before we dive into the individual traps that we're going to be talking about, these traps are going to basically blow your mind. You want to hang around to the third trap because the third trap, you're going to be going, uh oh, I have got to change some things about the way I work in the market.
Let's get to these traps. So, creating your own style too early. Bobby, why do you think that so many traders are obsessed with finding their style before they've even learned what works? Kind of like if you were trying to play jazz before you learn the scales.
Yeah. I think everybody wants to take complete ownership of their success and not be able to turn around and say, oh, I got to where I got because this person 50 years ahead of me came up with the idea and taught me how to trade. Everybody wants to be the creator of everything. I think that's a really big piece of it. I could, like me, I think about it, I had a mentor. That mentor put me on a path that set me up with it. Some people have that idea where they don't want to give anybody like, oh, I did it all on my own. I figured it out all on my own. In order to do that, especially in today's day and age where the market's been around for so long and there's so many different successful strategies out there, you find something and then they have to just tweak it somehow to make it that it's mine. I don't trade that. I do. It's like that, but it's mine.
So it's an ego pride kind of thing.
Yeah. And look, I know that's not everybody, but I think when people dig deep and really try to understand why they're doing it, I think that's a big piece of it. They're trying to make it their own.
Were you ever tempted to try to blend different strategies? You've been trading for what, 10 years now, approximately?
Almost 8 years.
Almost 8 years. Okay.
Yeah.
With the popularity of social media, have you ever been, tempted to, try to blend some of the strategies, the indicators, the advice on Twitter, on the death to all traders Instagram? Because I think, Instagram, I'm sorry, folks, but you're going to get sucked type of information on Instagram when it comes to trading. I mean, there's some good content creators about the market, but most of them are the Lamborghini guys.
Yes.
So
the guys that Peter Brandt loves ranting on.
Yeah. And I'm almost as old as Peter, so I can rant on that too.
Yeah.
But, how did you filter all that stuff out?
It's like one of those things where pretty much everything I try to do in my life, you talk about how you do everything, it's how you do anything. I'm always a very disciplined and kind of obsessive person to sometimes a fault. And I just said, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to strictly do this and stay focused on completely this. So I guess my personality in general led me to trying to be as disciplined as possible. I'd seen other aspects of people's lives that those disciplined, strict following people tend to find success. That's not to say that I did not at times try to, oh, what about this or what about that? And start seeing other things, luckily not the Instagram people, but other trading styles, like even successful trading styles to possibly, oh, how can I incorporate this? Social media is great and all these books and everything are great because you do hear about some of these faults from other people. And I'd heard enough about the faults of people turning around, trying to blend stuff and make things work. And it just doesn't work out in the long run.
Mm.
So that was what prevented me from really going down that path. But with that being said, I also understand, and a perfect example is as of lately, I have now been trading strict canceling for so long, and I've done so much performance review. I realize there are areas where I might have to make some adjustments to fit my personality better. But I also know what adjustments can be made without negatively infecting my trading and where to look to make it kind of mesh well. A perfect example of that is like looking into kind of like Mark Minervini is a style that I've kind of started to implement a little, knowing they are cohesive.
Yeah. They dovetail together very nicely. Mike, how have you adjusted some of your training? It took you a while to find your system and all that kind of stuff. How do you keep your system on track so that declutter? We have to do a reset occasionally.
Yeah.
To make sure.
All right. So staying on track. How do you stay on track? How do you make sure that you're not wandering too far off the reservation? 2 words: post analysis. It's very important. And the way that you're able to do a great post analysis is by actively journaling. If you try to do a post analysis without journaling, then it makes the whole thing very difficult. It almost is like you're kind of grasping at straws. So the way that the most efficient way, very similar to you, Bobby, like I would imagine a lot, like you've got to be very efficient with your process, right? To be able to juggle everything. Me too, because I started out doing all this stuff part-time as well. Get organized with your journaling first. You don't have to go crazy trying to journal everything, but try to have a structured way of what you're going to track and have a process for when you're going to track it. Block out time, and it makes staying on track that much easier, and seeing if you're like what levers need to be pulled that much easier too.
Yeah, right on. So, which makes that a really good segue. Help us pay the electricity here, guys. Mike covers a lot of that kind of stuff in his book, The Trading Mind Wheel. Did you like that? Was that a pretty good
Thank you.
segue?
That was good. I got mine actually. It's kind of right over there.
Cool.
That one right there.
Oh, there you
So
go.
there it is.
I thought it
Anyway,
was leveling with a bookcase over there.
Yeah, great. I find it interesting. Mike's got a bookcase in his background, and Bobby, you've got yours, and I've got mine back there. As we wrap up on the first aspect regarding creating your own style too early, one of the challenges I see a lot of traders have is they have this idea that it feeds to the issue probably of it's got to be mine, is that a lot of traders, they are challenged with the understanding that to build a great trading business, I'm going to call it exactly what it is, a business, in reality, takes a completely different mentality than to have a full-time job. Because if you try to walk in it with your full-time job mentality, getting paid every 2 weeks, it's going to screw you up. So what would your advice be to somebody who, as far as they want to build a trading business, but they think, so how do they get their mindset and their belief system changed around to saying, oh, wow, I can make a full-time income, but not working full-time? And what are some of the traps they could fall into as they're trying to go across that territory?
Okay. Having a full-time job, especially with shift work, you come in, you work your shift and you go home. Unless somebody brings it up, I don't really think about work. Trying to treat it as if it's a full-time job is constantly having those time blocks all throughout the day where you can do what you need to do to manage and run everything from top to bottom. It's not just about placing that trade. It's about doing the performance reviews. It's about expanding your education. It's about making sure that your mind is in a good place when the market's open and when you're making decisions, really just structuring the same way a CEO would structure their business. He has his calendar and he goes, all right, I get this done here. I get this done here. Oh, I have time here for my lunch. I get this done here. I get this done here. Oh, and I go to dinner with my wife and my family here. Structuring your time is, I think, extremely important. If you don't, it's very easy to just let a certain aspect of your trade business kind of fall apart. It's very
Yeah.
easy when there's a lot going on and you go, I'll do my performance review later. And then later becomes a month, 2 months later, you've now just traded without even looking at what happened last quarter and could have cost yourself money if you would have just went back and saw maybe some things that you were doing that you could have made changes on. Bringing that almost like CEO mentality and CEO structure to your life, however it fits, whether it's doing it full time like you guys are, or like myself, fitting that around your day-to-day job is very important if you're going to be able to manage all the pieces that need to be managed.
I
Like
think
it sounds like you have a standard operating procedure for how you're going to run your business. In addition to that, you have business hours. It's going to be from this time to this time. That's when I'm working on it. I'm going to figure out how I'm going to structure the best way to utilize that block of time so that way it doesn't bleed into the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Is that about right?
Yeah, 100%. Christy, my wife, used to own a dance studio, and anybody who owns a business knows it's not business hours. It's 24/7. It's always on your mind. There's always things happening. Trading, though, when you have a passion for it and you have so much interest and love and to do it, you do find that, there's times where I sit down on the couch after work and Christy's sleeping and I'm not turning on a movie. I'm turning on a show like yours or reading a book because I want to learn more. I want to, research and do different things. I think that's a big piece of it too. If you really do want to do this full time, do you have that passion and drive to do it? Too many people think it's this passive type of way to gain income and they're just going to open an account, make some moves and make money. And
right.
I don't think that type of person has the drive and the want to really do this full time, because I think about trading a lot.
You're not alone. Once the bug bites you, one of the things that I think can help people in this area is that, one, acquire knowledge. And you mentioned, Bobby, the thing about, watching shows like this one, and I highly recommend this show to everybody. No, just, but there's other things out there also. But the books you read, and not just on trading. Read books like I'm going through a complete audio series by Jim Rohn, one of the best guys for self development. Because even where I'm at in life right now, my objective is to get better in everything, acquire the knowledge. And unfortunately, so many people spend all their time acquiring the knowledge and then it sits there and rots. It basically goes into a stagnant pool. And so the next step is to apply the knowledge. And that's when you start growing the wisdom. That's when you start applying it to the way you trade and to both the mechanics and the mindset. And lastly, if you are saying, oh, I want to replace my income trading, recognize that I've replaced my income and I only spend 4 hours a week doing my trading, right? Now, I run my business, which takes time, which keeps me in the market also. But my actual trading process is primarily after market hours. Okay. I put in my conditional orders, I do the whole thing that way. And then my fire and forget orders, and I'm done. And what happens. I'm not saying that cavalier because I have my stop losses in place. I have my profit targets already that are all automatic. But what I have had to do and sometimes struggle with is I have got to find constructive things to fill my time. If I'm only working 4 hours a week on trading, what am I going to do with the rest of the time? If I don't have a plan for the rest of the time, I think that's where we can slip into bad habits, laziness, and that type of thing. So, Bobby, as we move on to the next session, what advice would you give a trader who's feeling overwhelmed trying to find their edge too soon?
Number one would be don't put too much pressure on yourself and understand that it's a much longer journey than you even realize. I hear people that are trying to figure out how to handle this market right now to make money in this next couple months or, whatever's going on. Understand that it's a much longer process than that. And you're not rushing to get into things and figure things out. One of the best books out there, which I have on my shelf over there, if somebody's trying to find their way and find a strategy, is Market Wizards. You get this gamut of all different types of strategies and all different
Right.
thought processes, fundamentals, technicals, commodities, future, all this stuff. That's a good place to kind of start and just to see, because there is a lot of kind of similarities between people trading completely different markets and completely different styles. And those similarities are what you really need in order to really execute ad trading in any way. So I think that's a good place to start. Then think about, I always say, ask yourself what you want out of trading. Are you somebody that wants to sit in front of a screen and trade more frequently? If you give that person some type of long-term strategy, they are not going to be happy. There are people
Right
that
on.
want to be more removed from the market and they don't want to look at screens and charts. There are people that have all different types of wants out of the market. So I think that's the first question. If you are feeling overwhelmed, ask yourself, what do I want out of trading? What do I want my day-to-day to look like? Use that to project you into a path that there's this proven strategy that can emulate that.
I love that. So, hey, Mike,
Yeah,
let's
me
get into
too.
the next trap.
Yeah, you kind of already segued into trap number 2, underestimating the time it takes to learn this stuff. What would you have to say to those people that are telling you that, oh, you just buy my course, I'll have you up and running in 30 days?
Yeah. I always try to relate everything in trading to stuff that people know in their normal life. If you look at any other career, accountant, a doctor, a construction worker, anything, there is normally this period, like Dennis, you were saying before, of gathering education. And then
Right.
that is not enough. You go to college and you do even a doctorate in something. That does not mean you can actually do the job. It just means that you probably have a good understanding of the job and how it should be done.
Right on.
Once you get that education down, you then have to learn how to execute. And that's another level. And I think too many people look at the market because it's very easily accessible. Pretty much anyone can go right now, open up a trading account, throw some money in it, and buy stock. It doesn't take much
Right.
in today's day and age. So the path to entry is so easy, and I think it creates this false sense of, okay, you could just jump into things and it's easy. Where really you got to look at it like any other career. You would never say, "Oh, I'm going to be a doctor," and take somebody's course and then say, "Okay, in 2 months I can perform brain surgery." Even 2 months I could go build a shed, and I have no experience in.
Yeah.
You're not going to say, "Oh, this guy told me he could teach me how to build a garage in a week," and you don't really even know how to do basics construction. And
Right on.
that's what I think people need to start getting in their head is it's like any other career, it's like any other job, and I'd argue it's probably harder than many others. I have a fairly complex, stressful job, I would say, as an air traffic controller, and I think trading is much more complex and stressful if you do it the wrong way. Think about it like
Yeah.
any other career and understand that there's an education period where you have to learn, and then there's a period where you have to learn to execute and have that hands-on experience before you can do it.
Bobby, it's interesting. I've made this claim or said this thing in the past. I used to fly jets off of aircraft carriers at night, and learning how to deal with my emotions trading was tougher than that. You said the same thing about, controlling, you've got the life of hundreds and hundreds, or if not thousands of people as you're sitting there at the radar screen. That brings on a huge level of stress. But trading presents a different kind of stress.
Yeah.
But you can get through it. One is look for the similarities, because if you can find if you let's say you're out there trying to build your own system, look for similarities between futures traders, between swing traders, between day traders, and guess what? While each one of those different types of traders will want to be proud of what they do individually, there are elements in each one of them that are the same. I'm talking from over 30 years of watching the market and different traders. And the last thing you said about education, people gain the education, and sometimes without application, you can have a doctorate. And what good is it? It reminds me of my dad used to always say, some people are educated past their intelligence.
I can
Yeah,
definitely say I'm not that person.
I try not to be that person.
Undereducated.
So most traders quit before their breakthrough. They think it should be fast because social media makes it look easy, but real traders build reps in their experience. So what are some of the ways did you do to build your reps, and how long has it taken you?
Honestly, Mike said it perfectly before. The performance review is probably the biggest thing to build your reps. You're basically getting a chance to retrade that stock by looking back at it and seeing, what did I do? How did that work? If I would have followed my strategy, because let's face it, a lot of us sometimes fall wayside. You look at the trade, you say, I didn't follow my strategy to a T. I did this. I should have did that.
Right.
So you look at, what did I do? What if I was strict to my strategy? What would have happened? And then if there's something that you were thinking about, maybe it's moving a stop to a different style or changing things slightly up, you can kind of then see, all right, what would have happened if I did this? And then you're doing that on every single one of the trades that you've placed in the last quarter, the last year, or however far back.
Sure.
And you're now getting to experience what that trade looks like over and over again. Just the pure fact that you're looking at those charts is, you're gaining information and you're gaining experience. It's all information gathering that is giving you repetitive reps. If you were the person that just said, place the trade, close the trade out, looked at your P&L and said, okay, that's it. You learned once. By going back and revisiting things, you're learning multiple times and getting those extra reps. And that's why you see the people that do performance reviews, how much faster they get better at trading.
Right.
The only other thing, it kind of shines like a mirror at yourself. So it exposes things to you that's going to help you rethink and go through that again and again and say, all right, is this how I would want to handle it again?
Yeah,
Those extra looks at something multiple times.
So, what's your thoughts in this area? Any questions for Bobby?
I think that his response is spot on. It's exactly what I would do too. It's important to be able to journal your process, do a post-analysis of it, One thing that I think that's good to do as well, in addition to studying your own past trades, build your own model book.
Mm, right on.
Build your own model book, find setups that have performed exceedingly well. You could go to O'Neill's book, How to Make Money in Stocks. The first 100 pages are all model books, but don't just read what's there. Try to go into your platform. I know that TradingView has a ton of data in it. You could go into there and then mark up the chart yourself. That way, when you're marking it up yourself, you're starting to get that feel. You're starting to put in the reps. And not only that, you're seeing it on your own chart. So that too is training your eye to spot these things later on. History does repeat itself, and putting in those kind of reps are a great way to make sure that you see when it does.
Yeah. Bobby, Mike and I talked a lot about completing your reps. You have to have your reps. I link that back to doing a model book, doing the analysis and the reflection on the individual trades that I've done, but also going back and reliving the trades that I've done, or simulating trades I haven't done, but simulating my setups. I'll go back and I'll roll back the dates on the S&P or the spiders. And then I will look for my setups. How do they work out? It really trains my eye. When I see it, I know it. And I've done it so many times, so many thousands of charts, that it becomes almost like a sixth sense. I go, oh, there's my setup. And now I'm prompted or compelled to, okay, there's my setup. If I'm following my rules, I have to take the trade. Bobby, how has your perspective on trading progress changed over the years? How do you measure your progress now compared to when you first got started?
Do you mean progress in your learning or progress in your portfolio, or both?
Is there a difference?
Yeah, I guess it's true. They both kind of go up together normally.
I'll ask you a question. Is there a difference? And if there is, let us know what that is. Because I think there may be a difference, especially if you focus only on one side of that equation.
Yeah. Well, I think on the learning side, it's that old, you don't know what you don't know type of thing.
Mm.
And perfect example, being a cancel trader, I've read How to Make Money in Stocks. And the first time I read it, it was confusing, and a lot didn't make sense to me. By the
Right.
second time I read it, all of a sudden now I'm like, oh, I got this. Now I understand this. But having not actually traded it before and having only read it twice, I didn't realize there were so many little things going over my head.
Right.
And then I would read it again and say, oh my God, I can't believe I missed this. Or I totally forgot about this part because I haven't read it in a year. And now all of a sudden I've left this out of my trading. And the learning progression is almost like you take a jump forward and then lose a little bit. It's just, some of that knowledge starts to teeter off out of your mind. You start focusing in on other areas, and maybe something that was less important to you at the time starts to fall to the wayside. And then you keep taking those incremental steps forward. And you could be focusing on one strategy, one book. And every single time you read something like that, you're just going to keep stepping up that knowledge little by little and progressing your knowledge. Now, with your actual trading, same thing. There's cycles in everything, the ups and the downs and everything. And it's the same with trading. You're going to have times where you're super motivated, really focused. Maybe your outside life to trading is dialed in, and you're going to make leaps and bounds in your trading. You're going
Right.
to dial in your routine. You're going to be executing your strategy perfectly, and your portfolio is probably going to go with that. And then there are going to be times where you're going to make small mistakes and maybe miss a piece of your strategy that's not perfect. And with that, your portfolio might kind of pull back a little bit and come down. Then you're going to re-up again. But every single time you keep pushing the envelope, you're taking that step up and up. It happens all the time. I had said the other day that with this market, I'm the type of person that's just not the market for me. So a lot of time I'm in cash, and I was trading a little bit more to the short side. In the beginning, I was doing very well. I was sticking to my plan. I was staying very strategic. And then I started to get bored, and I started to just make some trades on whims during the day, not based on the decisions I had made the night before, which is now my new concrete rule. All of a sudden, I get some of my gains from the year back. And I said, all right, I saw it happening. I got to take a step back, reset, and work to make that next stride forward. So everything with progression is that There's going to be those cycles. It's never in a straight line. As you continue to progress, the more you know, the more you realize you didn't know in the past, type of thing.
Right on.
You know what, Bobby? It's actually a win that you recognized where you were deviating and were able to course correct so quickly. There's so many people that don't have that element in place. So well done
Yeah.
Thank
to
you.
be able to recognize it that quickly and change things up.
Yeah. And that's a big shout to having community. That's one of the reasons why I have Discord. I enjoy talking to people like you and people that have that like mind trading, because at the end of the day, when you sit down and whether it's something like this or whether it's text conversation, whatever, and you think about what maybe okay, if I told these people what I did, what would they say to me? Or if they told me what they did, how would I respond to that? And like removing yourself from that situation kind of helps you go, oh my God, what am I doing? I got to reset. Something's wrong. Because it's very easy, despite how much you focus on mindset, there's always going to be those slip ups.
Yeah, without a doubt. It's so funny that I've been trading my same system for a long time, and I still have these little mind monkeys that mess with me. And I think you hit it right on the nail. It comes a little bit from boredom.
Mhm.
That's why having a structured day is very important. So, hey guys, if you're out there constantly looking for a new strategy or looking for a strategy you can live with, you need a system, you need a routine, check out one that's already proven. And that's what I highlight in my book, Trade Your Way to Freedom. And it says retire sooner, more money, and with less fear. Co-written with my son, Brandon, and forwarded by this really cool guy named Mike Lamont. And anyway, so check that out. And those links to those books will be put into the description. And so I hope we did save enough time for this. And this is the biggie. This is a huge one. So let's talk about the big one, the myth that there's one perfect strategy that wins in all markets. And this is the holy grail trap. Chasing the next best thing will keep you from ever sticking with anything long enough to make it work. I think you said that. It's not about the magic system. It's about disciplined execution of a sound system. So, Bobby, is there a holy grail of trading?
Not at all. I say this being a trader, and the community of other traders in the social media world always says how, everybody in the canceling says this is the best. And I will be the first person to admit that is not the case. Even you name a strategy, that's not the case. Every market is going to be different. There's same thing we talk about, cycles up and down with progress of your trading. There is cycles in the market, and there's periods of time where the market behaves in a certain way. Things are happening right now with this previous downtrend that we have is a different cycle than comparing to what was happening in the kind of second half of last year. Strategies are effective in certain different types of markets. They're not effective in every single type of market. You have to look at yourself and say what you want out of the market and where do you want to execute in certain type of strategies and trends and things like that. That something is going to perform very well in one, others are going to perform very well in another. The goal is to know when it's your time, when that pitch is coming to you, and be able to execute. That is what propels you forward and grows your portfolio and gets you making money in the market. And then when to sit out and when to take a step back and lessen the amount of risk you're putting into the market. That is how you get ahead, because you're not going down. You're just allowing your portfolio to grow and staying stagnant. And I think too many people look for these times where they want to be making money all the time. I just did it myself. I'm sitting here talking about it. I was trading a little bit too much on the short side and trying to play in a market that is just not the market for my strategy. And it cost me. Understanding that there is a time for different types of strategies. There's all different proven strategies, but there's no one strategy that's better than all the others. And the last thing I'll say is what is a great strategy for you may not be a great strategy for me. We talked about this before. Like, what do you want your day to look like? What do you want out of the market? Well, there might be some guy who says, I have the best strategy in the world, and he wants to sit in front of his screen all day and day trade. For him, that might be great. But if I try to execute that, it's not going to be effective strategy. So that's the big thing. Just understanding that there's different markets, different cycles, and different environments. that different strategies excel in and some underperform. And there's also different traders and different personalities. And it's a matter of knowing what's going to fit you in terms of a strategy and when your pitch is there. But thinking that you have the greatest thing of all time, eventually you'll find out the hard way that that's not the case.
You're a sharp guy, Bobby. It took me a long time to learn the lessons you've already learned. It's great to hear how far you've come in a relatively short period of time. The thing with learning when to stay out of the market, right? It's wrong to think that a system will win all the time. There's no one perfect strategy that wins all the time. A great strategy will let you know when to sit out, like you were getting at. It's like having a bunch of seeds. Like you wouldn't just plant a seed in the spring, plant some more in the summer, plant some more in the fall, maybe plant some more in the winter and expect everything to work out well. Knowing which season you're in and
Right
having
on.
a way to determine which season you're in, I think that's key for any system.
So, and yeah, that's absolutely rich, Mike. I think that, and it reminds me of something I was listening to Jim Rohn about this week. He talks about know the season that you're in, exactly what you said, and also learn from the season that you're in, because in the winter things are dead or dying. But what do? You prepare in the wintertime by simulating your trades, practicing your trades, and then springtime. What do you do in springtime? You plant your seeds, you sow your seeds, and then what do you do in the summertime? Well, you take care of your crop, right? You make sure that it's growing properly. And then what do you do in the fall? Harvest, this kind of thing. And the fact is that spring follows winter, fall, and then summer follows spring, and that never changes. And I think that that's one of the reasons why we see such strong seasonality in the stock market. There's a time to plant, there's a time to water, there's a time to grow, harvest, and then there's a time to sit on your hands and put duct tape around your fingers and thumbs so you can't push the go button on your mouse. Also, and so that's totally awesome. The other thing I'll throw out to you is think about this. Tell me, Dennis, you're absolutely wrong or out of here, but that's okay. See, I think there is a holy grail to trading. And you look at it in the mirror the first thing every day. It's the talk you have with the person looking back at you that determines whether your holy grail is either tarnished or truly shiny and is going to promote how well you do. Because it's either going to repel you from your dreams and goals or it's going to compel you to come closer. So I think the holy grail is actually what's here and what we develop over the time. That's, look within, not without.
Yeah.
Wow, that was really heavy.
That was
Very insightful.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to add, I mean, it's so true where when Mike, you talk about journaling and with trading, it sometimes it's not only about journaling your trades, but journaling your stuff that's going on in your life, and things that are you super busy with the 5-month-old? Are you maybe just running around stressed with something else? Maybe you're not stressed at all. Maybe you've been having everything's going smooth and documenting that as well. Because what happens in your mind outside of trading can bleed into your trading.
Yeah.
And it could have a positive and it could have a negative effect. And
Right on.
I think what I've noticed with some of the best traders is they have that ability to catch themselves when they see the things outside of their lives that are not trading starting to affect their trading. And when they see that and they go, "Ooh, I got to take a step back. Maybe pump the brakes a little bit, maybe remove myself from trading a little bit, because this stuff that has nothing to do with trading is affecting my mind and causing me to make poor decisions."
You ready for a little hack that we could all do to dig into stuff?
Yeah.
All right. So here it is. You could do this either with, say, a Google Doc, or even just like take some notes on your phone, so long as you're dating it, right? So date it. Do exactly what Bobby just said, writing out whatever is going on in the day. They don't take long. Spend a minute to spend 2 minutes doing something like this, but track it each day. And here's the hack. You're going to take that log, you're going to put it into ChatGPT. You're going to tell ChatGPT, here's a log of my journal over the past week, month, however long it is. Analyze it. Tell me where I've been ruminating. Tell me any holes that maybe I might not see. Give me general feedback on this, and you'd be shocked at what it spits back at you.
Wow. That's pretty cool. I'm like a pen and paper type of person, but you might have made me switch. That's pretty interesting to be able to dissect all that.
And
Hey, here's something else it could do. You could take a picture and it'll be able to read what's on your page.
Oh, oh, that's even better.
Not 100%.
Yeah.
If your handwriting sucks like mine, then it might struggle a little bit, but it can do that kind of stuff too. It's
Without
really
a doubt.
wild. And the ChatGPT part too kind of blows my mind.
Let me blow your guys' mind. The OG is coming up, the chat GBT stuff. I use the mobile chat GBT and I basically talk directly with it and it talks back to me. You talk about having a really awesome conversation. I'll have to demonstrate that sometime in the future, but it's linked to GBT 4.0. And so it's basically has memorized everything about me, my business, my trading style, my YouTube channel, everywhere I am, my idea, my idea client. And then I can go back and forth with him. We can discuss ideas. And then I can also put in a verbal journal about, hey, today's trades where it's really blah, blah, blah. Go back to that the next day, add some more information to that. And then that already puts it in written form for me. I say, okay, go analyze my last week's worth of information. Throw on top of that the spreadsheet I use to track all my trades and say, hey, where's the strong parts? Where's the weak parts? What's going on? Maybe we should do another session about that in the near future.
That's great.